Hello, my most amazing artists. Today we're looking at the art of Wayne Thiebaud and specifically his ice cream cones. Wayne Thiebaud was known for using oil paints or oil pastels to try to make his art of sweet treats look really realistic with highlights and shadows, his use of color or pigment and texture on all of his drawings. Now today, because we're making a plan for what we're going to make out of clay into a 3D sculpture next week, we are going to be starting out with our sketchbooks to plan first. So first will be your sketchbook and a pencil, or if you don't have a sketchbook, you can use a whiteboard and a dry erase marker. That's going to be to sketch out your plan for what you're going to be doing with clay next week. Now, because the ice cream cone would not be able to stand up on its own with clay, if I made it the right side up, I'm going to be making this ice cream cone flipped upside down, almost like it looks like somebody dropped it and they found it on the ground. We could probably trick some people when we make these 3D out of a sculpture or out of clay and you can see them all the way around. People are going to think that you dropped your ice cream cone because it's going to look so real. So I'm starting sketching in my sketchbook, light till I get it right, drawing light sketchy lines with pencil, starting out with a triangle shape, then adding a circle on the bottom, and then erasing in between to round the bottom to make it a cone instead of a triangle. And then I'm going to go ahead and make a squiggly wiggly line on the bottom to show the bottom of the ice cream. Then I'm going to put some texture with some crisscross lines to make it look like a waffle cone on top. I could even add some decorations like sprinkles, a cherry, or a little cute face if I wanted to. I'm even going to include the shadows like Wayne Thiebaud does in his art to make it look really realistic. So if I want to, I can practice a couple times in my sketchbook, but you want to at least practice enough to have an idea of what you're going to do with clay. This is a place where you can practice and plan and turn a new page without feeling the need to erase and make it perfect. The only time I'm erasing is when I need to erase a line in between my shapes. You'll also have an ice cream cone drawing guide that can help out remind you which parts to erase to make it look realistic. So I'm changing it into that cone shape, making the bottom a sphere shape, then making it look like that ice cream is on the floor or on the table, like it fell, so it has something to stand on. That's going to be how these stand up when they're made with clay next time. I'm going to add that texture of a waffle cone onto there, and then when I have my plan done in my sketchbook with pencil, I can start on my big final paper. You do want to make sure you at least do one practice in your sketchbook or a whiteboard before you move on to that final big paper because you only get one. I'm going to start the same way I always do. The first thing I do is always the same. Pick up a pencil and write my name and class code because this is a loose leaf sheet of paper that could get lost. So I'm going to start the same way where I'm actually going to make 2 cones. You don't have to do 2 cones. You could do 1 cone if you want, but because you have a big paper, make sure you take up most of the paper. So I start with the triangle, add a circle, erase the middle there to change it into a curved line to show where the cone ends and where the other part of the ice cream scoop is. And then I'm going to make that wavy line at the bottom to make it look like it fell and it's sitting on the table. I could even add some extra lines to make it look like it's melting as it's sitting down after somebody dropped it. So I made a little bit of a melt there, and then I'm going to add the shadow behind it, add the texture onto the cone, and then we can start talking about using oil pastels. Now, when you use clay next week, you're going to have 2 types of clay. You're going to have brown clay, and you're going to have gray clay. The brown clay will be for the cone. The gray clay is going to turn white when it comes out of the kiln. That will be for the ice cream because you can make it any color you want. So today you're going to be coming up with a plan for what color you're going to make your ice cream and what flavor. So when you're picking your color, you want to think about the flavor that it is. If I'm picking pink, I automatically think strawberry or cotton candy or raspberry. If I pick vanilla and white, that's what I would think of. If I pick brown, I'm going to think of chocolate. If I think green, I'm going to think of mint chocolate chip or pistachio ice cream. If I pick purple, maybe it's something like grape. If I pick orange, maybe it's dreamsicle or orange cream. If I pick yellow, maybe it's pineapple. If I pick red, or I make Superman ice cream with red, yellow, and blue. So you can think about your favorite ice cream flavor and add that in there. When I'm using oil pastels, I want to make sure that I'm using more than one color. So I started out with a pink, but then I went over top of it with a light pink. You want to blend at least 2 or 3 colors of oil pastels together to make it look smooth, creamy, and realistic. I can even use white on top of any color to blend it together and smooth it out and make it look real. When I do my cone, I'm starting out with a dark brown, and then I'm going to go with my second color because you want to use at least 2 colors when you're coloring with oil pastels. Now, when I start with my first color, I'm pressing pretty hard. It's even okay if you accidentally break your oil pastel. The more the merrier. Now you have 2 pieces. But I want to make sure I color thick and thirsty, not thin and wimpy. Thin and wimpy would mean if you can see through your lines of oil pastel to the paper underneath it. You want to make sure that you're coloring nice and thick and you fill in all that space to make your ice cream cone full. The more I color it, the more it's going to look real, like it's popping off of the paper. I'm even going to use a darker color on the side that would have the shadow. Now, shadows are what's behind something. When you go out in the sun and you see a shadow behind you on the sidewalk, that's because the sunlight is hitting you and it's shining, and your body is making a shadow behind you of where you're blocking that sunlight. So you want to think about where the light is coming from in your picture. My light would be coming from the right, so the lightest parts of my ice cream are going to be on the right and the darkest parts are going to be on the left. That's why you saw me use a darker color over on the left, and I'm going to use a blue shadow behind it like Wayne Thiebaud did in his art. He always included blue shadows because they looked a little bit more tasteful and a little bit more yummy than just using a black shadow would. So he used blue, and I go ahead and blend it over top with white again. Now, if your white oil pastel gets too dirty, you can always scribble on the back of your paper to test it out. If you get oil pastel smears on your paper, oil pastel is actually erasable. Just make sure that you're not smearing it, maybe not erasing on your actual ice cream cone. This would just be if you accidentally get any smears on your paper that you're worried about because you were keeping that background around the ice cream cone white. So after I clean that up a little bit, and if I need to wipe my fingers, I could wipe them on my art wipe at any time in the middle of my table. Then I'm going to switch over to my other ice cream cone to show you what I could do for a different flavor. Notice the more oil pastel I add, the more realistic it's going to look. I pressed a little harder with that darker color on the left side of my cone because that's where the shadow side was. The brighter side would be the right side, and that's where I put the white shiny parts or the lighter brown on the cone. Now I'm going to make this ice cream a chocolate ice cream cone. So I want to show the difference between the chocolate ice cream and the cone because both are brown, but the cone would be a lighter brown. So I'm making sure for this one that I'm going to use an even lighter color than I did in my other ice cream cone. So I'm going to use a really light peachy or tan color here because there can be different colors of ice cream cones. There's waffle cones, there's sugar cones. You can make any color cone you want, but I would recommend making it some sort of brown because you're going to be using brown clay. So we're making a plan for what you're doing with clay, and that clay will be brown, even though you will have a chance to paint it after we have our clay week next week. When I'm doing this ice cream part, remember you want to use at least 2, if not 3, colors of oil pastels together. Coloring like that, not good. I can't just leave it like that. I have to go back over with another color. So you want to use a lighter or a darker version of that same color. So I went in with a lighter brown on top, and then I can use white on top of any color to blend it together. So then I'm going to go back with white and add those highlights in there. Also, white just makes it blend all together and look smooth and creamy and more realistic like real ice cream. This almost looks like I could reach into the picture, take it out, and eat it even though it fell on the ground and it's starting to melt. It still looks delicious. So now the only thing I need to add is my shadow. So that would be the last part before I sign it and say I'm done. Now before I do say I'm done and after I add the highlights and shadows on there, I want to sign my name if I didn't already on the front and upload it to Artsonia. If you have time today and you've already made sure you did your best work, colored with oil pastels, sign your name on it, don't have any spots where you can see through the oil pastel coloring, then you can go over to the iPads, go to Artsonia, log into your account, typing your name, hitting your grade level, pressing the Add Art button, and then it's going to say Ice Cream Art. You're going to click that button. It's going to be the first one you see, and it's going to lead you to take a picture of this masterpiece. Now, you could either bring this to the light boxes to take the picture, or you could bring the iPad to your table and just put it on your chair and take a picture of it there if there's a line for the light box. When it's all done and you've gone through the steps of pressing the top right button on Artsonia to upload it successfully, and I can see it on my computer, that's when we can go over to see if we have any extra time for free draw. You want to put these in your folder so that you have them for next week, so that we have our plan done for when you get to make this with clay. Have fun, artists. I cannot wait to see your yummy ice cream.